Hey guys, Bar from TST Industries here. In this episode of TST Garage, we will be installing this new Toce Performance full racing exhaust on a 2015 and up Yamaha R3. Now we've been doing a lot of builds on these bikes. We've used a lot of different exhaust systems that are available. Now Toce has finally provided us with this brand new system for 2018, and we're really excited to get it on for you guys and show you how it's done. It's pretty simple. It's quality constructed out of stainless steel and aluminum materials, has this signature Toce look, and it's really lightweight. So the OEM exhaust is 18 pounds. This whole system comes in at 6¼ pounds. So right there, you're shaving a lot of weight. In addition, what these guys do that I haven't seen any other exhaust company do, they provide us with the parts to eliminate the charcoal canister from up front in here. This is a racing setup. The charcoal canister acts as some sort of an EPA device that filters out gas fumes from your gas tank overflow for racing applications. We don't need that. We have a means of blocking that off and taking it off, and these guys provided us with those components. In addition, we also have a plug that goes into the air tube that goes from the AIS circuit into your airbox. Some guys will opt for block-off plates, eliminating the AIS totally. That requires a ECU flash. If you don't want to do that, but you want to take advantage of not getting dirty air going back into your combustion chamber, we have a plug that comes with the system. We'll show you how to install that, and we'll get it all wrapped up, and it'll probably take about a half hour. Now, I'm really excited to do this. We've been provided with some really shiny new stuff here. The system comes with all the necessary hardware and also brand new gaskets that go against the head between the header pipe and the head of the motorcycle, so you won't have to buy OEMs. This system comes with those parts. This is probably the most inclusive system that I've seen. The way it comes, it's one package, get it in the door, throw it on the bike, and you get good results. Now I know the Toce guys, they've had this on the dyno. They actually developed the system on the dyno. They went through many iterations of design until they arrived at the header pipe lengths and the flow dynamics the way they are now. I've seen the dyno numbers. They are very good. We are likely going to use this exhaust on our race bike this year. Stay tuned for that. We'll see. For now, let's just get this on the bike, start it up, and hear how it sounds. All right, so step one will consist of removing these two body panels on each side of the bike. To do that, we will remove 5 fasteners using a 4mm Allen. Next, this panel comes off. A couple of friction fasteners underneath, release it. It just comes off like that. And this panel will unhook here. There's a little hook between the two pieces. If you push it down, it unhooks. And this whole plastic panel can be pushed towards the bottom. And that will disengage these sliding locks. And we could take that off. We'll repeat the procedure on the other side of the bike. In this next step, we will be removing the catch can for the coolant. 4mm Allen head screws here. 10mm here. Make sure to get the washer. We will remove this catch can from here. Remove the hoses. Put the catch can to the side. Now we will have to get underneath this protective sheath for the wiring and find our lambda sensor or oxygen sensor plug. It's a black plug. It's got 4 wires going into it, white, blue, and 2 blacks. I will undo this wire management guide clip, and this 4-conductor plug will have to be removed at this point. I'm going to pry up on the locking feature and pull it out. So this portion of the plug has this clip here. Pry up on it, it releases this ramping feature, lets it go. Now we can go on to the other side of the bike and unroute this wire all the way down to the lambda sensor and get that prepped for removal. Now on the right side of the bike, working with that wire that we just disengaged from the other side, and we'll just pull it out on this side, undo the cable management routing clips on this side. These guys here in these two locations, I just like to pry back on them a little bit and get the cable out. And now it's fully free. I'm going to take a 17mm open-ended wrench and just crack this lambda sensor so that it's loose. Once we take the header off, it's easier to remove it then. Now I'd like to start the removal of the canister. I used a 12mm socket and an open-ended to undo this bolted connection. Now on the bottom here we have a clamp that has a 10mm socket head. Once you loosen it, it'll just slip off. This is the screw I just undid. It just clamps this in place on the header. Once that comes out, this step's complete. So now in this next step, I will be loosening the two bolts that connect the catalytic converter and header assembly to the frame. One is over here, and there's another one roughly on the same spot on the other side. So we'll just loosen these up. Now we can proceed to the removal of the nuts that connect the header pipes to the head. So using a 12mm socket, I'm going to loosen all of these header nuts. Once they are cracked loose, they come off pretty easy. We will retain these nuts for use with our new setup. Now the flanges can come down. And the top portion of the exhaust is loose here. We can wiggle it off. You can see it just comes right down. So using the 12mm socket, we will now fully back out those screws that we cracked loose in the previous step. Once those are out, you need to support the exhaust from underneath, otherwise it'll just drop. This last screw that I'm about to take out will make the exhaust free. So I'm going to hold it. As soon as the screw is out, I'm going to gently lower the exhaust, making sure that I dodge all the other geometry on the bike. And if I pivot the exhaust out to the side, I'm able to manipulate the header out of the bike. And now our exhaust is out. All right, so as you can see here, our gaskets are still in the head. I can get my finger in there and take them out. We'll be replacing these with the ones provided by Toce. Okay, now we can spin back the lambda sensor. Get it out of the OEM header and get it installed on the new mid pipe for the Toce exhaust. Just going to do it hand tight for now. It's going to get tightened all the way on the bike. Now let's address the charcoal canister. I'm going to use an 8mm socket to undo the two screws that hold the bracket to the motor. two hoses running to it. We're going to slip them off. Now the skinnier hose is just an overflow from the gas tank, an aerator actually. So we're going to take the little hose clamp off and keep it off. On the larger diameter hose, that is a vacuum line. We're going to plug that with this component provided in your exhaust kit. And get the clamp back over the thick section. Now this is blocked off. As an option, you can use a wire tie to get these zip tied together nice and neat so they don't dangle around. I just like to get them back and just tighten them down to a more rigid section somewhere. This way they don't just dangle around. That looks good. Now with this out and being replaced by just the exhaust, you're removing this and the OEM exhaust and you're shedding 12.5 pounds. So this is a really nice mass reduction. I'm really happy with this. And let's move forward with the other steps. All right, so the next thing we need to address is this component. It's a plug that blocks off AIS flow into the air box. We'll hold one of these air boxes we have from another R3 in the same orientation. There is a fitting here that I marked with this arrow that receives the hose I'm talking about. The hose is hidden beneath here, but you get the idea. It connects into here, it has a clamp over it. We will get that hose out here, plug this in there, and then replace the hose, and that will block the flow of the circulation of air from above the valve cover into your intake system. Now, if you don't want to do that and you're going full race on your build and you just want to get rid of the whole AIS, then we do have these nice Spears Racing AIS block-off plates. They replace the entire system, and then you just have to flash it out of your computer. If you're not going to be flashing it out, this is the best solution. It gets the job done and it's free. So I'm going to grab some long pliers and slip off the clamp. And now I have my hose off. Mine's marked in blue because I was leaving myself visual notes. You will not have that blue tape there, so I'm going to try to plug this into the air box and see if that fits. That may be the better solution, and it does. So we're going to actually plug this into the air box and then put the hose over it and then clamp it. Now replace the hose. And then place the clamp back where it's actually clamping the hose onto the air box. And that step is done, so we can move on to the actual exhaust hardware installation. So let's now make our selection of the appropriate side header tubes. You have left and right. They look identical through the main section. The only difference is where these spring tabs are welded on. You can see spring tabs will go outboard. So this is my left, this is my right. We'll prep those for installation. Get our gaskets in. Now, if you just plop these in, it's very likely that they will come out. So what I do is use a little bit of lithium grease on one of the surfaces. This will burn off during normal operation, but it will keep it in place for us as we do the installation. Once you apply pressure to that, surface tension of that grease keeps it in place. So now with the flange towards the head, we are going to get our pipes in and the flange onto the studs, and then using the nuts that came out of the OEM setup, hand tighten that on there. We need to make sure that we preserve a lot of adjustability because we have multiple links of exhaust that need to get assembled together and finally tightened at the very, very end. And so I will just repeat this procedure on the other side. At this point, we could fit our collector onto our header pipes. You can see I've left a lot of adjustability here. It'll make it vastly easier to get all this connected. One thing I want to point out here is the orientation of these tabs for the springs. You can see here, these are angled downwards. So in consequence, these also have to be angled downwards. This way, when all of this comes together, you have your spring on axis. If you have this special type of lubricating metal, if you have this available at an auto store near you, I highly suggest using it. It will make sure, sort of like an anti-seize, it will make sure that your pipes assemble nicely and easily. And then anytime you need to disassemble this system, it will be very, very easy since you won't have metal-metal contact here and fumes getting through and corroding the surface and getting it stuck together. So this is a very good chemical to use. If you don't have it available, I suggest using just some sort of grease that can burn off. Lithium is a very good one. All right, so let's now fit these guys together. You have to be patient. Don't overstress anything. Manipulate it so that it fits in nice and easy. You can rock it back and forth until you feel it bottom out. And then you give it a couple more adjustments just to make sure that you've actually bottomed it out. And I think I've done that here. This is pretty nice. I'm gonna get my spring on. Should go on nice and easy like that. If you have too much of a distance to cover, that means you haven't bottomed it out. I suggest checking into it before moving forward past this step. All right, now we can grab the mid pipe that goes onto the collector. See how we need to attach it. This is where it'll go. Your lambda sensor goes pretty much in the same location as on the OEM setup, and these tabs align with these. Once again, we're going to put some lubricant in there. I don't know what this stuff is made with. Hopefully I won't be growing a third arm. Probably should have used some gloves, but we're past that point now. So let's get it all together. All right, that looks good. Get my springs on. And if you don't have a spring puller like I'm using here, you could potentially use locking pliers. If you do use locking pliers or any sort of method like that, I would suggest that you use eye protection. Sometimes the plier will slip off and you have flying springs coming at you. It's a good idea to protect your eyeballs. Okay, and just like that, pretty much up to the point we could start fitting this guy on, but we do have this lambda sensor wire hanging out, so I kind of do want to get that routed first so that we don't run the chance of snagging it. And get this guy through here, up. Going to need to get clamped in this routing clip that we undid in a previous step, and the plug will have to go all the way to the other side. So let's get that over to the other side first. And then I could clamp the routing clip. All right, now let's get this clamp over in this orientation onto our canister pinch area and get that fitted over the outlet of the mid pipe while aligning this hole in the mounting tab with the exhaust mount on the frame. All right, everything looks to be fitting nicely. I'm going to use the provided hardware from the exhaust kit, washer and bolt from outside. Now there is a shoulder spacer in there in that rubber mount on the frame. It can get pushed out, so make sure you get it seated back in. Another washer from the back side and the provided locking nut. These fasteners will take a 13mm socket and box wrench. So I'm going to snug them up just a little bit and then make sure that I have a gap between my brake system and the canister. This will enable you to control the gap here by pushing the forward section of your canister more onto this mid pipe. So you want to make sure that you do have approximately a 1/4 inch gap there. All right, this clamp will take an 11mm. And I like to have the head of that clamp, threaded portion, hidden. So we're just going to tighten that down and make sure it forms around the pipe here. Looks like it slipped out. Get it snugged up, but don't tighten it all the way just yet. I want to just give a little bit of resistance. Now we will tighten everything from the forward portion to the rear portion of the exhaust and take it all the way to the final torque. I'll just turn them in by hand until I bottom them out. Wiggle them around a little bit, make sure that I bottom out by hand. And now I'm going to use my torque wrench set to 11 foot-pounds and tighten them up. All right. Now let's ensure that we still have that gap here, and then tighten up on this connection. All right, that looks good. And now this final bolt here, like I said, that was 13mm. All right, we're looking good. Have clearance everywhere here. Lambda sensor is routed over to the other side. We still have to plug it in. All the exhaust fasteners are on. So now let's hop on over to the other side, make that connection on the lambda sensor, and start putting all the OEM components back on the bike. So let's make that connection now. This goes back in the same place we unplugged it from, and then we'll get this protective sheath around it and lock it in place. And now we can proceed to the reinstallation of our catch can. Now, this is a good opportunity to refill it if you need to. As you can see, we are in between low and full, so I'm not going to be doing that. Don't forget the other overflow hose. Now we can get that on the mounting stud underneath this rubber piece. Forgot to do one thing here. There's a routing clip for wire management. Bend it around all the wires, clamp them down. Now we can proceed. Shroud still has to go underneath this setup. And now that we have it in place, put that washer back on and 10mm nut. And then replace these two screws for the shroud. And now we can replace the body panels here. Let's align this panel the way it's going to go in. Remember, these guys go in, slide up. There's another one here, slides into a window here. Repeat this same exact procedure on the other side with the panels that go on the right side. All right, so I'm gonna perform the last couple steps here, and then I'll fire this thing up for you guys. Using a 17mm open-ended wrench, I'm gonna fully tighten on our lambda sensor. If you recall, I left it hand tight. Now I've just tightened it, so that's ready to go. This is an optional step, but protects your investment. I'm gonna use denatured alcohol to wipe down the surfaces of the pipes that I touched with greasy hands. This will prevent stains from happening. And baking in. Now, I didn't leave myself a lot of room here. I reassembled everything. You guys can actually do this before you put the body panels on. I think I have just enough room. Clean this thing up enough for my liking. All right, let's hear this little beast roar. All right, as you can tell, we are getting a lot of sound out of this little bike. This exhaust has a truly unique sound to it, has a very distinctive tone that comes from only Toce exhausts. It is a full exhaust. It will give you all the benefits of a full exhaust. If you go and change your intake filter and get a proper tune on this bike, you will see a big difference in the power delivery. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I really had fun performing the installation for you guys. Hope you check out more information about this exhaust on our website, tstindustries.com. I hope to see you there. One more little note. The shoulder spacer should be removed so that during road vibration, during riding, it doesn't vibrate out and hit somebody in the windshield. Pretty important. Get rid of it.